Hello, and welcome back to Golden Truths, an Umineko podcast, a podcast about Umineko, where we are discussing the visual novel series Umineko no Naku Koroni. I am your host and witch of communication, Jennifer Booher, joined as always by Annabelle Barsky.
I want to be a witch too.
Isabelle Boyer.
Everyone calls me Izzy, twitch.tv/EasyTimeStream.
Grace Hobson.
Howdy.
And Matthew Winter.
Howdy!
Okay. Loving the energy that we're bringing into the room right now. Yeah, so last we left off, we were talking about the potential existence of this 19th person. And
Definitely exists.
That's pretty much where Chapter 8, which is where we are at, opens. The adults are yelling at each other and keep asking Maria, like, who did you get this from? Like, who was the person who gave you the umbrella? And she just keeps answering Beatrice, and basically that goes nowhere. All the cousins are, like, super disgusted by that display, and, you know, George, again, acting as the adult of the family, says, you know, sometimes you gotta fight for money. And Battler says something to the effect of, well, this is our parents' problem, not ours, which is like, George is 23 and already working at his parents' company. Like, for how much longer is that going to be true, Battler? But after that, Battler and Kyrie have this little conversation about who Beatrice is, and the question we're getting at just earlier. Do you think Beatrice is a 19th person? What does everybody think about that?
Yes.
Well, first you have to flip the chessboard around.
Okay, yes. So we do get this kind of what I guess you could consider, thinking about Umineko as a game, the first mechanic shows up here, which is spinning the chessboard around. The idea that if you look at the game from your opponent's perspective, you can figure out things that you may not be able to figure out looking at it from your own perspective. How has that influenced anyone's thinking about the existence of a 19th person or not?
Absolutely it has.
Well,
lay it out for me.
yeah, Matt and I were kind of fighting about it over between recordings.
Mm-hmm.
We have.
I don't know what you're talking about. The seamless world that we are weaving here. And yes, please.
The problem is that there's more information that we'll be getting somewhat shortly that is very important to the question of the 19th person. And I think that the point of this happening is to make people consider the possibility of there being someone else on the island to begin with. Because it would be very convenient for, if anything bad were to happen, to blame it on someone extra instead of someone included. I find it for that reason to be very likely that it is one of these 18 who is actually dressing up as Beatrice, and not mysterious witch woman.
I see. Okay, yeah, that is a theory that I think Battler puts forward, or even Kyrie might put it forward here. Basically that there is no 19th person. The culprit is one of the 18, trying specifically to make it appear like there's a 19th person. Grace or Anna, resident witch believer, any thoughts on this?
I'm just, saltily in the Golden Land over here, disappointed that nobody believes in all the magic I'm witnessing. No, I mean, physically, the only thing that makes sense is if there's a secret another person, I guess. Or someone's telling a lie, but I just feel like it's easier to accept that there is some degree of magic. And we aren't there yet, but as you get to the end of this first chapter, I feel like things become less and less explicable using
for sure.
logic and mystery novel chessboard spinning techniques. I feel like reality really crumbles into freaking dust at the end of this, and there's no other way to explain it, but it's magic. So that was the mindset I took on reading this the first time.
I think due to kind of the rules that, or the theory that Kyrie puts out here, like the 19th person theory kind of becomes bound up in the magic theory. Like the idea is that the 19th person, this quote-unquote 19th person who exists, is Beatrice, a witch. Whether or not, she has a physical human body. There is some kind of 19th, at least, force in the mansion, and that is that is Beatrice.
Okay, well, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. My real answer is Beatrice is the 19th person. Period.
Okay. Well,
Beatrice is the 19th person, but magic isn't real, so everyone can fuck off about that.
okay, Izzy is still on team. There is a Beatrice, but she does live in a hut in the woods and eat squirrels.
I think it's very possible, but the conversations I had with Matt during the compressed time space between now and then,
In the hyperbolic time chamber.
the hyperbolic
Yes,
time
absolutely.
chamber that took place in the course of 10 seconds. I mean, I think there's a lot of little bits of evidence that point towards it there not being a 19th person that don't go explained and are just kind of glossed over, but they're there. But like, we haven't gotten to that point yet, so
For sure. The early goings, it's easy to kind of point out, well, maybe a 19th person exists, maybe they don't. Like, this is just something Kyrie kind of throws out just by, again, spinning the chessboard around. There's still a lot more kind of evidence and, of course, spoilers, everybody, murders to get through. So
There's one other thing I wanted to point out real quick before we move on past chapter we're kind of on right now.
Yeah, please.
Before Rosa starts doing horrible things to her daughter in the last chapter, I don't think we actually brought up what it was they were looking for. We mentioned earlier how Maria had seen a wilting rose, and then George tied a candy wrapper on it. On their way back to the house, as it's starting to get windy and the storm's starting to kick up, she wants to go find her rose to protect it and take care of it before the storm hits. But it's missing. And it's not until the very end of the scene where Rosa is actively assaulting her child that she actually suggests the possibility of, well, someone took it then. It's too little too late, and a lot of bad stuff happens after that, but it's worth noting that theoretically, this 19th person, or the 18th, or person number 18 who is acting against everyone else, is the one who took that flower for whatever reason to get Maria out there, or whatever.
I'm gonna drop a little nugget here on you guys. The mystery of the rose and where did it go, you may be able to come to a solution already about what might have happened to that rose. I'm just going to drop that and move on.
Wait, what?
Are you kidding me?
what?
Did Gohda harvest that piece of shit for dinner?
The dinner at the dessert, they are served, or is it during lunch? I don't remember. I think, no, it's during lunch, right? Because they go to dinner after that scene.
It was fucking Gohda all along!
Gohda serves a rose-themed, rose-flavored dessert with, quote, rose petals from the rose garden.
Oh, God.
So it's not too
Gohda's
far.
the 19th person!
Yeah, Gohda's the golden witch.
Oh, shit!
I knew this was...
Golden Witch.
Well,
That weird image you posted of Beatrice's body with Gohda's head makes sense now.
Yes, my Discord emotes are powerful, and Gohda-trice has already established itself as a leading theory. I look forward to how you incorporate this into your arguments in the future.
Fucking Gohda.
I do want to give Kyrie credit, even as a non-believer in logic. Logic isn't even a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
She really is the one who introduced to me even the concept that this is a game, because regardless of what you believe in or not at this point, she literally introduces, like, you have to think about this from other people's perspectives, and you have to be, like, critical in perceiving what's going on right now, battler. Like, she really does set the whole game afoot, as Mr. Locke would say. And I give her big credit for that. She's really in her detective bullshit mode, and that's sort of the premise of the whole series. So thanks, Kyrie.
It's a really fascinating thing that she does, where she basically grabs the player by the shoulder and says, "You should really be paying attention."
Yeah.
Because whether this is actually a 19th person or only 18 people, or if it's magic or not magic, you should be able to look at this and think about why these things are happening and who's doing it, because we very much intend for you here in Umineko land to be able to follow along and at least pick up on some nuggets.
Yes, exactly.
I may have mentioned this earlier, I may not have, but one of a very explicit purpose or point of the When They Cry series, both Higurashi and Umineko, is the idea of game pieces moving around on a game board, and you don't know the rules that the pieces move around according to. And part of the the game, quote unquote, in this, Japanese adventure game is deciphering those rules and coming up with theories and really trying to understand what is going on past kind of the immediate appearance of things, and whether that is some kind of Western murder mystery and then there were none kind of thing, or whether it is magical witch murders is the point. So there will be a lot more of that going forward. Rudolph comes up to Kyrie and Battler and basically says something really ominous. Like, he wants to talk to them, but he hems and haws, and then he says, well, I want to tell you something, but if I tell you it, I will probably be killed. Which is very ominous. At this point, no one has died. What is this premonition that Rudolph has?
It's the weirdest thing said in this whole episode.
It kind of is. There's he says he wants to have a family talk, which with all the stuff about the inheritance going on. Rudolph turns away and Kyrie says, well, if you spin the chessboard around, I think Rudolph wants me to chase after him and make him talk. And she has this line that I love. If you ask me, romance novels have much deeper mysteries than masterpiece mystery novels.
Correct.
It's just very good. I love that a lot.
I never got to say my opinion on which is it, 18 or 19.
Please.
I certainly think there's credence to the Beatrice / 19th person, so whether or not magic is real, I think that's there. But part of me also wonders if, because there's so much infighting that, it just started off that they just started killing each other and there was never a coordinated,
That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, but, they were really, at each other's throats, and then, once stuff started breaking down, people just didn't know what was going on.
Well, that would be very in line with what happens in Higurashi. As I said, Higurashi spoilers in this series all the way through, so here are some. In Higurashi, there's all this talk about, there's this curse over the town, and every festival, someone dies and someone disappears, but it ends up being a sequence of unrelated events that are being manipulated to appear to be this curse by a third party. So if that was the case, that would certainly be in line with what was going on in Higurashi. Though that makes you wonder, would Ryukishi use the same trick twice in a row?
This is true.
But that's an interesting. That's a very sideways approach at the problem that I think is really good.
One other thing I want to drop from Higurashi, just so that everyone has the full context of this at least, is that in Higurashi, magic was real. But it had absolutely nothing to do with the actual sinister overplan and everything. Magic was the force of good that allowed us to eventually have a happy ending in Higurashi.
Yeah, a lot of the talk of later in this book, later in Legend of the Golden Witch, there's a lot of talk about miracles and rolling the dice, and all of that stuff comes right out of Higurashi.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, but so by Jen's rules, if they're not going to use the same trick twice, then magic is still real, but it's different this time and it makes everyone miserable and terrible. That's it. Problem solved, people.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get rolling here. Kraus basically confirms that the gold is real. He shows Natsui this one ingot that Kinzo had shopped around and showed to everyone. Natsui feels very betrayed by this because Kraus had not told her, and she's just very shaken about her place in the family. Kraus, of course, just tells her to calm down. This has nothing to do with you, he says.
Asshole.
So Natsui is just fully beaten down, hated by her family, hated by her husband, hated by her daughter, Jessica, she is constantly kind of trying to turn into this, an ideal heiress, as it were. Oh, and it comes up here that Natsui was forced to marry into the Ashiramiyas due to some sort of unavoidable fate, for some reason that we aren't really told. Jessica finds Natsui in the middle of this, and basically after a kind of terse exchange between the two, Jessica gives Natsui her scorpion charm that Maria had given her back on the beach, which becomes a very important part of Tomorrow Morning. So after that, all the cousins go back to the guest house. Shannon says that she'll take everyone over there. She and George are what is it? Like George is holding the umbrella, or like Shannon's holding the umbrella and George is carrying Maria. So they're like very close together, and like Battler makes some crack about it. And both
you're
of them,
just
like,
smothered in tits over there, George. Look out.
it's literally what he says. It's so much. Oh, it's so much. I can't stand this man. But the cousins get back to the guest house. And they go up to their room, and Shannon checks in with Genji and Cannon, who are in the servants' room. And, you know, Shannon was invited to go play with the kids, but she knows it's her servant's duty. And we get some more of this furniture talk here. Cannon's like, you know, furniture doesn't need to play with humans. Human children may have a need to play, but we are furniture. Eventually, Shannon does go up there, and then kind of the next thing that happens is George and Shannon scurry off to have this little love scene in the gazebo out in the middle of the rose garden. The rain is coming down. It's kind of crazy.
Right, and I made a note here where I said that George is like a walking sausage of a man, and I have no idea what you season in.
It's kind of...
Yes. I feel
we
vindicated.
Need to have a very...
Okay.
We need to talk about George and Shannon.
First of all, don't judge their relationship because you don't think George looks good.
No, it has no. He's a bland, unspiced snack.
Yes, it
George
is
Ishiro
nothing to do with how he looks. It has to do with every part about him being as palatable and boring as possible.
Okay.
He is like the image of... He takes Shannon out to the gazebo and he's like, you know, I've been building my fortune, and they say a feudal lord has to protect his servants. Have you ever heard about this general from the Sengoku era? Because he said that, you know, you need to respect everyone's accomplishments, and like goes on this whole fucking tear about like what it came off to me as like his kind of like philosophy of manhood and what it means to be a man and what it means to be like an adult and what it means to be a husband. And so, okay, but before any of that, George Ushiramiya is 23 years old. Shannon is 16. I don't know if Ryukishi knew what he was writing, but it is not in the scene itself at all. It's portrayed as this like very sweet and like, you know, tender moment, but there's a real fucking slime hanging over everything George is doing. Like the power dynamic between the basically servant and the served. Like George is like always talking about, well, Sayo, if you can't say it yourself, then this is an order. And Sayo goes, it's an order. Oh, and we get Shannon's real name. She says Shannon is her servant name. Sayo is her actual name. And it's just, what did anybody else think about this? Because I have a lot of very weird, conflicted feelings about this.
The background of Shannon and Cannon that was revealed intermittently throughout this episode, but some of it was there. I thought it felt really gross that they had like servant names. That just seems
like
kinda,
professional names. Sure,
that just seems kind of gross to me.
I know, it's so wild in the origin too.
Beyond that, something that I thought was weird. I wasn't conscious of the age difference when I was reading it originally.
Totally, me either.
Yeah,
that's only something I really keyed into during my reread.
But something that did feel weird to me was how often that Shannon would go, I can't do that unless you order me to do it. And then George is like, then I order you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, they have a really strange dynamic.
It's a terrible, unequal, totally uneven power dynamic, baby's first S&M relationship in the grossest, absolute worst, not sexy at all way possible. It really reads that way. It's like you learn about power dynamics, and instead of like being wary of that sort of thing or responsible with that sort of thing, you're like, ooh, this is kind of fun, isn't it? Let's get married about it.
Is this right after the scene where Battler faces his toughest challenge yet?
Well, what would that be?
He has to grab these boobs, but he can't.
I think we discussed
Oh, you mean like the thing where that's during Shannon's introduction, I think, where he goes to grab Shannon's chest as his funny little icebreaker, because he knows he's going to get slapped, but then Shannon doesn't move to like hit him or anything. She just like blushes demurely, and he's like, oh no, I'm going in for the kill. And like Jessica
Yeah.
like smacks
Like,
him. Is
it's
that
a
it?
dumb scene and everything, but, like, that is basically the dynamic between everyone with Shannon, because she is that submissive to the authority of the Shiramia family. And it comes off as incredibly gross that someone could even think about interacting with her in any sort of romantic way, because...
Yeah. I mean, Shannon, this is something we get in this scene. She's been working for the Shiramia family since she was 6. They say that she's been there for like 10 years or something, where most servants leave the Shiramias after 3, but Shannon has stayed there. So there is, you know, she has some kind of like pull towards this place. She just loves the work, like whatever it is. And yeah, like the fact that George is in this relationship with her at the same time, I think, you know, to spin the chessboard around, you have to look at this from Shannon's perspective as well. Like, this is a girl who, like, has worked for this rich family for 10 years, like, basically hasn't known life outside of the Shiramia family. To her, George, this, like, guy who is, don't get me wrong, a chump, but is this, like, I'm going to take care of you, baby, and, like, I'll fight anyone for you, and, like, you know, she's totally won over by it. I think it is a gross and fucking whacked out power dynamic, but looking at it from Shannon's perspective, in her shoes, I get it, you know? I get why she would think, oh, this could be a good thing for me, oh, this is something I want, you know?
Yeah, I if that's your whole world, I mean, she is being mistreated, obviously, because of the power dynamics, but she's
being mistreated by Natsui, by, like, Hideyoshi, yeah, like, all the servants are.
Yeah, but she is so swept off her feet nonetheless, so that's
But
good
if
for
George
her.
if George is
Yeah.
like her since they were kids, that means I was like an 11-year-old being like, I have a crush on this 6-year-old.
That's the other thing, is that, like, we know that there is some amount of history to this relationship, and as gross as 23 and 16 is, like, the more you roll back their ages, the kind of worse it gets. Like, it is, again, I can't tell, like, reading this scene as is, I can't tell if Ryukishi knows what he's writing, or, like, because it never really comes up, like, yeah, baby, you know, I'm 7 years older than you, or whatever the fuck, but we're gonna get out there and do it. Like, it just, I really don't know. I really don't know.
I feel like we're talking about some things that are presented critically that are difficult to bear, and some things that are not presented as critically. I feel like that is not presented very critically.
Exactly. Because, yeah, totally. I think parts of this, like, Ryukishi knows exactly what he's doing, and parts of it just feel like ill-considered or just cultural differences, whatever the fuck you want to say. I don't know.
Ooh.
So yeah, there's all that. George offers Sayo this ring, and she's, you know, I can't put on the ring, and George says, I order you to. And Sayo says, okay.
That is not
Sorry,
what
I
George
order you to
says.
consider it.
No, it's I order you to put it on, but you choose what finger, and depending on what finger you choose, that will give me your answer.
Yes, right, yes, thank you.
I mean, I think out of everything they could do, I think that was probably the best way George could have handled that, because, I mean...
Oh, for sure.
He shouldn't have fucking been ordering people to put rings on, but maybe they just know that that's what Shannon's like, and he knows that's really the only way to get around it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the way that we are meant to take it. I think we are meant to take it as these are two people who know each other, and, like, George knows that Sayo is very inside of her shell, and so he plays these games with her to get her out of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I do understand that, and I think in that context, you know, there is something sweet about this scene. It's reading it in 2021 instead of in 2007 when it was originally released.
Yeah.
It has a much different vibe to it.
Also, as the music major in the room, is this when the fucking meat and fuck song is introduced to the sick ass hip hop beat?
It's so
In
much.
sync ballad song is introduced. That's the time.
Oh, you're so fucking right, though.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm
it
talking
is.
about.
It's gentle harp, the string instruments, the wind. It's like it's the most kind
You
of.
just need like a
I
Justin
wouldn't say
Timberlake
orchestral, but like
beat track, and that would.
It's this weird dissonance from the rest of the game, which has been like kind of bright and cheery. This is the fucking schmaltziest thing you've ever heard in the world. So Sayo is elated and
Runs the fuck away.
yeah, she runs the fuck away, goes to the mansion where she has to, what is it? Like she has to work over there or
Has to,
she's like trying
help
to
get the
avoid
guest bedrooms
George.
working or something. And she decided to go hang out, go help get the guest bedrooms working in the main manor instead of at the guest bedroom to avoid George.
Yes, right, because she needs some alone time. Gohda is there. He is truly fucking around, passes off all his work to Sayo and goes back to doing his fucking crossword puzzle or whatever
Very
the fuck.
important.
And
Just very important. Someone said.
very important.
Do you think crossword puzzles are very important?
No.
Crossword puzzles suck.
Good.
Maybe he's doing a word search, okay? I don't know what he's doing.
I love The Wire, yeah.
He's doing a junior jumble.
He's doing a collection of logic puzzles, and each one of them is wrong, but he's certain he's gotten them all right.
He's reading the I Spy books, but can't find anything, but is trying to play it cool.
Oh no.
Literally. So Shannon goes out to, check all the windows, make sure everything's locked up, and she sees something sparkling in the corner of her eye. And the clock strikes midnight, focus on Beatrice's portrait, and we get a roll call of basically where everyone is right now.
And we also get a Steam achievement.
We do.
You get a Steve achievement. God, I don't remember the text on it. It's some Umineko ass thing.
It's like
it's
the
great.
pieces are in place.
It's so good. I love how literally at this point, the whole vibe is like the setup is complete, and now
All the achievement's called 2400, so like military time for midnight. All of the pieces are in place. What will you see on the game board?
Kraus, Rudolph, Kyrie, Rosa, Eva, and Hideyoshi are all in the dining room. Shannon is in the mansion hallway. Gohda is in the mansion servant room. Kanon and Genji are in the guest house servant room. Kumasawa is in a guest house hallway. Nanjo is like in the darkness, like he doesn't have a background. Battler, George, and Jessica are all in the cousin's room, and Kinzo is in his study. Curiously unaccounted for are both Natsui and Maria. Maria, we can assume, is in the cousin's room with Battler, George, and Jessica. And Natsui, we can assume, is in her room, but we can assume a lot.
Can I say something potentially dumb? Because I've already proven myself wrong.
Please.
Natsu and Maria both have their charms, so perhaps whatever vision the narrator is why we are not seeing them properly. However, Kinzo is in his study, which has a charm etched onto the doorknob, so that already proves that theory is wrong.
And Maria doesn't have, well, maybe she has more charms in her bag. That's a devil's proof. But
like Battler still has his.
Supposedly.
I'm sorry, I thought
Hey,
I heard you say...
This was after fucking Rudolph goes to Battler and is like, I'm probably gonna die.
Yeah, totally.
That was like good.
Bitch.
I was like, huh?
I don't know
and Kyrie is like, he's just being bratty again. I have to go get him. Hang on.
I don't know. I don't know if we glanced over that or if it was during my 3-minute call with my mom. But I did want to bring up the fact that Rudolph seemed to actually want to talk to his family and let them in on something,
Yeah.
which I wasn't expecting out of him. Like I thought he would just let whatever happens. Like
Totally.
I mean, maybe I just didn't show it, but Kraus didn't like find Jessica and go, I might die today.
Well, actually,
Why do you think? No, go ahead.
that actually touches on something I'd wanted to talk about. Like one of my favorite themes from the not mystery side, but the like drama side of this episode is like the moments of tenderness that like we talked about. These are all shitty rich people, but there's like moments that humanize just about all of these characters. Not literally everyone, but most of them. Because you have that moment with Rudolph, who's a fucking chauvinistic tits out jackass, but he like takes that moment and he's like really soft all of a sudden. Even Balor's like, wow, this is really weird, Dad, what's going on? And then he dies, but also you have Natsui, if you're talking about Jessica and her dad, well, Crest doesn't exist, but Natsui has a tender moment with her daughter where it's like Jessica's been upset and Natsui's like, you know what, thanks for the Scorpion charm, I hope things are okay with you. No, George has his
George is
moment.
about to have his moment with his dad. After they open up
Oh, I suppose so. That's one way to look at it. Well, then let's hurry on towards it.
And there's more there too, such as
6 a.m. the following day, October 5th. The servants are getting ready. Genji and Kanan are getting ready, but like Gohda isn't in the kitchen, and like there's no dial tone on the phone. Genji wakes Natsui up, and she grabs the doorknob and realizes, oh, I hung that magic charm that Jessica gave to me on my door last night. And she opens the door, and there are these like gigantic scratches and like dark red, almost black, like marks all over her door. Like someone was trying to get in? Question mark?
people scratches.
People
Scratches. You know, human scratches. Everyone wakes up. More people turn up missing, and wait. Ooh, there's a very important thing before we get to the murder. Natsui goes up to Kinzo's study.
After Ava's a massive asshole to her.
Yeah, he's trying to like ask where people are. Do you know where anything is? And Kinzo is like super calm. And God, what is it? Kinzo asks her if she misses her birth family, and Natsui says, not at all. It has been many years since I was first permitted to bear the name Shiramiya. And Kinzo like mutters under his breath, if Kraus were a woman and you were his husband.
Like, he clearly is like, this fucker is clearly like, God damn, I wish you were my son.
I wish you, it's so, there is so much. Well, it's not even I wish you were my son. It's if Kraus was a woman and Natsui was the husband marrying into the family, something. And Kinzo says the one winged eagle is surely engraved on your heart, which Natsui really needs to hear after like she's been constantly beat down.
Ava.
Ava meets her as she exits.
Ava's just the worst. Ava goaded her into going up here in the first place, followed her up here to rub her face in it.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
But then she gets smitten.
Yeah, she does. She like tries to say some shit, and Natsui is in like serene mother
that
mode
moment,
and is like,
that was a clarifying moment for Natsuki.
totally.
It
And she was
cleared
just like,
my skin to
"You're
read
a
it.
bitch."
Crops watered.
But then Kanan does find this weird magic circle on the shed, and everyone runs out there, and they break the lock or they unlock it. I think they just regular unlock
Yeah, they
it.
unlock it because they have the keys for it.
Mm-hmm. And inside are all the corpses of everyone who's missing, which is Kraus, Rudolph, Kyrie, Gohda, Rosa, and Shannon. Everyone's faces are all like messed up. Everyone except Kraus and Shannon have their faces totally disfigured. Kraus and Shannon only have half their faces. Nanjo, the doctor, of course, fulfilling his role in the mystery novel, says he guesses they were killed about 6 hours ago, which would be just after
He
midnight.
looks at them and shrugs.
I mean, to which I'm pretty sure someone else looks at him and goes, how do you know that? He goes, you know what? I don't really know that. Sorry.
He's literally like, I'm a general practitioner. I don't know this shit.
We should wait till the cops get here. What are you talking about?
I have a treasure chest with sweets if you're a good boy. That's all I got.
Literally, I don't want... I bet Nanjo would have a totally regular, like, treasure chest with, like, plastic flip frogs and gummy things. Like,
yes.
The most regular... He is bog standard doctor you've ever seen. Here we get that scene you were... I think it was... You were talking about, Matt, between George and Hideyoshi?
Yeah, so people kind of come up in waves here. Like, the first people to come in is Kanan, Natsui, and I think Hideyoshi and Ava. And then up next comes Badler and Jessica, and then following them is George and Maria, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thereabouts.
And Natsui tries to block the kids from seeing it because, hey, this is something kids probably shouldn't see. But at the end of it, George comes up. You know, he's very sad, obviously, and he sees that Shannon is one of the corpses, and he's very, very sad. And but he's not allowed.
He doesn't. Yeah.
But he's not allowed to approach to learn anything because I think Ava says very correctly, hey, we're not touching anything. This is evidence for the police.
Well, I want to... Let's be specific here just for the sake of, like, specificity. Like, Shannon's corpse is in the back, like, behind... Like, you can see 5 corpses from where you're standing, but Shannon's is, like, hidden in the back. So no one sees Shannon's corpse. At least George doesn't, and he's like, well, Shannon's missing, and then Hideyoshi he asks Hideyoshi, who is looking into this like hidden corner, like kind of behind some shelves, is like, is she back there? And she says, yeah. And like, then the stuff with the ring happens.
And like, George is showing, I guess, a level of maturity beyond what Jessica and Battler are doing, because they like would not stop themselves from looking at the carnage. But George, I think, knew and I think this also with a little bit of push from Hideyoshi, knew that he would not want to see Shannon like that.
Yeah, totally.
We actually get a bit of an echo of that later with Kumasawa saying, oh, I wish I could have seen Shannon in her last moments looking so peaceful and serene. And then I think Battler's like, nope, you don't, dude.
No.
No, you did not.
Another thing that happened during that conversation, it's not just that George is asking Hideyoshi to effectively identify the body for him, but also is like, hey, FYI, is she wearing a ring? And Hideyoshi's like, yes. And George is like, where is the ring? And Hideyoshi is like, the middle finger, the ring finger on the left hand. That'd be so funny.
If only. Oh, if only.
She said,
And,
fuck
like-
you, George.
Like, that's supposed to be like it hits George even harder because Shannon accepted his proposal, supposedly.
Totally.
But I'm wondering, how likely is it that Hideyoshi would lie to spare George's feelings?
Well, if he was going to lie about that, it would require him to know about their whole arrangement.
well,
right?
yeah, but like,
Which
okay.
George is like, I think we're meant to take it like he's keeping it, on the
Well,
DL.
I'm pretty sure there was dialogue at some point where it was at least known that like
They had a history. yeah.
George liked Shannon, and why?
Oh, for sure.
Why the fuck would George go, hey, does she happen to be wearing a ring? Also, which finger is it on? Is it on the left one specifically? The left
For sure.
ring
I see
finger?
what you're saying.
I think that's easy to infer.
I have to agree with Izzy on this one.
So you think that Hideyoshi's just lying about the ring?
I think
like,
it's
is she not wearing
possible.
one
I
at
don't
all?
think that he necessarily is, but I don't think we can take it at face value.
I don't think on the flip side, let me try this again. On the flip side, I think there is no reason for him to lie because it doesn't come up in any context at any other point that the ring is significant in any way except for George's happiness. So unless Shannon really did hate George's ass, I think she probably...
It does come up in the next chapter, or no, I think it's a few chapters later, that Eva is actually a little relieved that Shannon died because that means this kind of impromptu proposal where her son, who is basically born to like usurp the headship of the Yoshiramiya family, would not be marrying some servant.
Yeah, that did happen.
So if she knew about that...
It's an open secret. Jessica also mentions and nudges him a bit time, like, oh, looking for anyone specific here, huh? And that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. But it's one thing to like someone, and it's another thing to be like, I have given you a ring and we are engaged to be married now. You know?
Mhm.
We can talk about who knew what, maybe a little later.
The hot goss.
Yeah, the hot goss. There's a lot of hot goss. Everyone goes back inside. It comes out that due to a variety of factors, there is no way to contact any other island. There's no way to get off the island. They are stuck on here until the typhoon passes. Kumasawa finds blood in the dining hall, which everyone kind of agrees is probably where the murders took place, or at least some of the murders took place. Right, the Eva and Natsui go up to Kinzo's room to like try and let him know about shit, and he's not there. Eva's worried, Genji's like, well, there's a bed and a bathroom up there, so I don't know, there's not really any reason to leave. And it's we haven't known Kinzo to leave at all so far. But after this, Battler and Eva have a chat, and Battler does some thinking on his own about what is going on.
I really like that chat.
It's a good chat, right? There's a lot of good stuff. Well, does anyone have any thoughts on specific parts from that chat, or any theories they want to put forward here and now about the murders that just took place, or just kind of how the situation has evolved?
I can tell you my exact thoughts from when I read that.
Sure.
Because what Battler does is he basically has an internal chat where he thinks about Kyrie and everything and what just happened and why things are like they are. And I took that to heart and I expanded on that in my own way, and I had some fun with that. So I think we both read it differently, but with the corpses, only 2 of them had their faces mauled beyond recognition. And that was Rudolph and Kyrie. And being someone who is familiar with mysteries, that means that there is a very good possibility, since they are faceless, toothless people who are recognized only by their clothes, that those are not actually them, or at least one of them is actually faking their death.
Mhm.
Later on, we're asked the question, when is a number greater than 18 but less than 19? And the answer is very obvious. It's when you miscount.
It's when it's 8.5.
Ah, damn it, you got me.
What does it mean to be half a person, Izzy?
Furniture.
Well, what it means to have a person. Okay, we're getting into my theory now.
let's let Matt finish.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
So that's kind of the first part of it. The other part of it is the people are, and it's said by, I forgot his name, Dr. Man. Oh, these people weren't...
Nanjo.
Nanjo goes, these people were beaten up like this after death. That's super weird. And Battler asks himself the question, why did this happen? Why were they made to look like they're like this after death? And the answer is very obvious. To make it look like they were in an extreme amount of pain. To make it look like they died painfully, when that is not true. My personal theory is that they died poison. And then they were mauled after death, and then moved there.
I
Thinking
see.
Beatrice thoughts over here, dear.
Izzy, what are you thinking?
Okay, so a lot of what the questions come into with the numbers. When it's 18, greater than 18, but isn't 19 or whatever. I think we as the readers and the characters spend a lot of time treating Kinzo as a solo operative. Because, so there's the moment where Natsuhi and Eva go up, and they're like, oh no, where the fuck is Kinzo? And everyone's like, wonder where the fuck Kinzo is. And they talk about all these possible ways that Kinzo may or may not have been up there. Everyone seems to be disregarding the fact that there are 3 individuals on the island who supposedly aren't blood related, another theory of mine, but do wear the symbol of the house, which even the spouses of the children don't have. Because
yes, that's specifically Shannon, Cannon, and Genji are servants who are allowed to wear the one-winged eagle.
They are so important to Kinzo as furniture or whatever that they are pretty much, at least especially Genji, are completely dedicated to him. And to think that Genji, Shannon, Cannon, and Kinzo should be treated as... I mean, they should be treated as 4 individuals, but you should also consider the possibility that they are also Kinzo's arms and eyes.
This is kind of a theory that basically that Eva puts forward right here, is that due to the fact that to unlock the storehouse shed, you need to know where the key is. You need to, 1, know where the storehouse is. You need to, 2, know where the key is on the very elaborate, complex key sorting system in the wall of the servants' room. You need to be able to pick it out, put it back. Eva takes this to mean, the key doesn't have a tag on it specifically. She notices. So her guess is kind of that the servants are all in on it. And she even supposes that maybe the servants could be serving a mastermind of some sort.
And I'm a little bit on board with that one for even other bits of evidence that come up later that I could talk about now or later if you'd like.
Well, let's save it for later. Let's save it for when we get to it in the story, because we do have a little bit more to get through.
I like this part because it's when the good song starts playing.
This is true.
Which one is
Golden
that?
Slaughterer, baby. First time.
Oh, Golden Slaughterer, so good.
Should we
really
force Jen to put songs in the
attention.
background when we talk about them?
I don't...
You don't have to force me. I mean, there is another Umineko recap podcast
Hey,
out there
Jen!
that does that. So, okay, well. Whether or not there's music playing underneath this right now, the song is very good. Golden Slaughterer is kind of where, I mean, the moment with the shed and all the corpses is kind of when, Umineko kind of becomes itself, when it says, here is the big thing, and here's all this gruesome murder and these, banging club harpsichord tunes. Like, it's awesome. It's it's horrible, but it's awesome.
Yeah, I was at once horrified because of all the drippy, squishy blood sounds and the screaming sound effects and all of that and the sound novel stuff going on, and I was basically pulled through it by the awesome song. So yeah. Really good.
A couple other things happen in this chapter. Maria identifies the magic circle that was on the shed. It's the 7th magic circle of the sun, which Maria describes and draws in perfect detail. She notes that there's Hebrew in the magic circle, which is the text of Psalm 116, 16 through 17. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and will call upon the name of the Lord. So Maria says that basically the corpses weren't there. The magic circle wasn't there for the corpses. The corpses were there for the magic circle to like power it in some way to perform whatever magical ceremony that is going on. Nobody really likes this.
See, here's why magic is real, is because who else all of the 18 people on the island would freaking know that? And it was not Maria who killed all these people.
That's a point. Battler brings that up. The magic circle, the culprit was able to recreate it perfectly late at night, standing in the pouring typhoon rain with an umbrella in one hand. And it's not like the magic circle that Maria draws and the one on the shed match like perfectly. Everyone says it. That it like, so the only people on the island who are really into this occult stuff are Kinzo and Maria, which if you believe in a human culprit, like, what is that there for?
I also wanted to say, go ahead.
Kinzo's trying to summon Beatrice or whatever because he's horny for her.
Good for him.
And
this is an important theory I think we need to consider.
Everyone's like, okay, only Maria or Kinzo would have it, and I think that is, again, spitting in the face of the idea that Kinzo has 3 servants acting as his limbs, because...
Well, 2 now.
It's also spitting in the face of another idea, which is, we know everything about these people. Like, there are 18 people on this island. We're assuming there are 2 people who would know anything about this. And I think given the fact that, 1, the characters only meet each other once a year, they don't know each other that well either, all things considered. And 2, we're looking at it from their perspective, and we're looking at it from our perspective. And it's just, we're missing a lot of the in-between. They could be doing anything between these times. There's nothing to say that Krauss didn't just find a book the day before and just like, oh, that looks like something I could use. I'm not saying it's Krauss. I don't think it's Krauss. He sucks.
Oh, it's Krauss.
Oh.
No, it's Gohda.
I'm so looking forward to the end of this podcast, Matt, to talk with you specifically.
Okay, that felt like you're letting us know that it is Krauss.
No, I don't want to skip forward. But that exact attitude that Matt is employing right now, I don't know. Krauss found something and someone did something, is directly addressed in the first epilogue. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, it is. It's fun.
Very much looking forward to that. Natsui comes back and Natsui leaves at some point and then returns with a gun. And she has this gun that is it's one of Kinzo's guns. He ordered it from America. It's a short-barreled Winchester from an old cowboy series Kinzo liked, which is actually the real TV show Wanted Dead or Alive, which aired in like 1958.
I think you'll find it's Wanted Alive or Dead with Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen, so good. Very Disneyland. I love all of that stuff.
Western gun, Western names. What does it all mean?
It means that Kinzo is a fucking Westaboo. He's literally... My name is... God, what's it? My name is...
Slim Shady?
Kobayashi Johnson? No, there's some famous...
Copy pasta. Do I need to look this shit
of...
up for you?
No,
He's
it's
like wearing
fine.
like a fucking cowboy hat and everything.
Yeah, he's wearing the cowboy hat. It's so good.
Rawhide Kobayashi.
Yeah, Rawhide Kobayashi is so good. Kinzo is Rawhide Kobayashi, is what we learned from this exchange. That all happens at around 9 a.m., and then everyone just kind of bums around until 1, when Battler kind of barges in on the servants cleaning up from lunch, and he basically grills them for information about Beatrice. Canon says that the Witch of the Forest, like the ghost story that Beatrice is a witch who lives in the forest, so don't go out into the forest at night, kind of story that was passed down to the siblings and then the cousins. Canon says it's real, and Genji says that Beatrice is a real person who gave Kinzo his gold and worked with him for many years, since before the mansion was built, and probably longer than Genji has. This is word out of Genji's mouth, who has so far been like pretty reliable figure. Battler asks if Beatrice is on the island, and Kumasawa says that Beatrice has no form, and Genji says, yeah, she'll only show her body to common people like us if she wishes it.
This is the part where everybody is looking at a spot exactly 1 foot behind Battler. That's something he does not see.
Stare behind Battler like they're cats.
It's all the servants that are left alive, so it's Canon, Genji, Kumasawa, and then Maria comes in and joins in on it, and they all stare at this spot exactly 1 foot behind Battler, and Battler turns around, and he doesn't see anything.
Doesn't have the right wavelengths.
Yeah, Maria says that. He has a mismatched wavelength, which is so good.
Battler, your hurts sucks.
Your hurt sucks. You don't know what magic is.
I do also... I wanted to mention, like, Maria's, like, whole attitude change, and, like, I think they...
Yeah, totally.
So, like, it was mentioned, like, last episode, like, how she was able to, like, recite things perfectly, but... And, like, we didn't really hear, like, any attitude change aside from that. But, like, when she starts describing the circle, we get her, like, I think it's important to note that she wasn't even phased that everyone died. Like, she was just like, okay. And then we hear her have a new tick, which is, like, the kee-hee-hee-hee-hee-hee, which, like, no one has really heard before, as far as I know.
No, it has. I don't think it's really come up in the, maybe here and there, but, like, this is certainly the point where Maria's Battler talks about it like it's an alternate personality or something, like kind of really comes to a head, and she really starts owning her position as the one who knows things about magic and witches.
The one who knows what's up.
Yeah, totally.
But this isn't like a new thing for Maria. Like, there's dialogue later that implies that she's been doing it for a while.
Well, totally. The cousins all talk about it, all the cousins except for Maria. They all talk about it afterwards in this really, like, drawn-out exchange that's very, like, Ryukishi stopping the novel to have his characters talk about, like, the nature of identity and growing up, which I love. I'm fully bought into that stuff. Yeah, like the basically George and Jessica and Battler, they all kind of talk themselves out of believing that Maria has some kind of, like, alternate personality, or like she's being possessed. And George kind of posits that, like, well, you know, when you're growing up, you start wanting to, like, differentiate yourself. And one way you can do that is by, like, knowing a lot about a particular topic, like, say, witches and magic or something.
Growing up talk.
It's yeah, there's a real, like every other part of this game, there's a really, like, gendered spin put onto it where, like, boys tend to focus on physical stuff, but girls tend to focus on mental and spiritual things. And they kind of point that as, like, well, that maybe Maria is, like, she's trying to find herself, and so she's, like, really buying into this, like, witch identity. It's a lot. Anyone have any kind of thoughts on this part of the book?
It's not directly through the characters and everything, but I found myself nodding a decent amount through all this just because of, like, I have certainly known the person who thinks they have figured out a greater truth and that they are truly enlightened more than anyone else. Sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's a conspiracy theory of some sort, but, like, that's become more and more true as the world has gotten both bigger and smaller. Like, in 2007, it wasn't as true as it is now. Like, QAnon and stuff like that could only get so big because of people who could see the bigger truth. And it's just something to make you feel special. And I don't want to be mean when I say something like that, but that's genuinely how it comes off to me, is this is something that makes me special, is that I have the actual real knowledge that no one else does.
Well, I think something that might be equivalent for us in our particular kind of internet cohort is, like getting into fandom and stuff as, you know, a young kid on the internet, like gaining all this knowledge about a particular work and like, you know, learning it front to back, like knowing all particular like little character quirks. That is also a way that you know, you don't necessarily like go through like a Chunibyo phase about it, but like that, I think the thing that they are kind of, the broad thing that they're trying to get at here, at like the need to differentiate yourself and the need to like gain your own identity is a real thing that a lot of people do. Maybe it doesn't manifest as like an obsession with like magic and witches in the particular way that it does for Maria, but that questions of identity and questions of secret identity, of like of punishment, of backlash to that identity is happening in a mystery novel, I think is really important. Because like, you know, whether or not there is a 19th person or the culprit is among the 18, like the supposed culprit would have to be someone who we don't know a whole lot about. You know, motive is something that keeps coming up, like trying to figure out the culprit's motive. And these are questions that I think are kind of central to the mystery genre of the thing you think about a person and the thing the person thinks about themselves and the ways that they try to like become themselves, I guess. Is this making any sense? Mm-hmm. I found this conversation that happening inside of this mystery novel, I found to be thematically resonant, you know, with kind of like what the things the genre does.
I have one more note on this.
Yeah, please.
Which is Battler drops what I think is his single most tactless line in the entire novel here.
Uh-huh.
He says...
That's impressive.
It's pretty good. He says, Aniki, I can't believe you're single.
I do remember that. I was like, holy shit, man.
I forgot about
that. Jesus, dude. Only now. God.
It's like Austin Powers. Oh no, Shannon, you're dead. Wait a tick, that means I'm single. Oh, behave!
Oh my God.
Yeah, baby.
Who's eligible for him, Kumasawa? Go get it, man. But yeah, identity.
Identity. Well, this is an identity, but like some more big questions come out, but this is more directly tied to the mystery. First, Battler has this kind of theory phase where he's like, Beatrice, as she exists within the servants and within kind of the atmosphere of the mansion, has kind of become this catch-all thing that you can like, oh, you know, your keys aren't where they're supposed to be, so you say Beatrice did it. Or, oh, I can't find my shoe before I have to go to school. Oh, Beatrice must have taken it and put it away. Like, she kind of becomes this sort of little catch-all explanation for unexplainable coincidences. So Battler theorizes maybe the culprit is trying to frame Beatrice, as it were, which I think is an interesting theory. Battler kind of asks some of this to the group, and eventually the conversation comes around to where is Kinzo? And Ava reveals her trick, Ava's trick. When she met Natsuhi, leaving her very meaningful conversation with Kinzo, she stuck a little receipt in the door, like for no reason at all, just for a whim. And then later, when she and Natsuhi went back up together and opened the door and found that Kinzo was not in his room, that receipt was still in place before they opened the door. So the question becomes, how did Kinzo disappear from his room while the seal, the closed room of Kinzo's study, it has an auto lock on it. No one else can open that door except for Kinzo or like Genji or whatever, who has another key. We find that out later. How did Kinzo disappear? Any thoughts on this, people?
Secret tunnel.
Okay.
Secret tunnel.
Everyone says they don't think that. Well, Genji, I think, says that he doesn't know about any secret exits or anything. That's part of the closed room stuff. Of course, that is also a devil's proof. Who knows if a secret tunnel does exist and someone just doesn't know about it?
There's another possibility that I thought of. So Genji does have another key, and the receipt is not viewable from the inside of the room, but it's noticeable from the outside, of course. It is very possible that Genji just noticed that stupid thing when he opened the door. It's like, hey boss, there's a receipt in the door. Whether or not that means Genji is the murderer, which I seriously doubt, or if that means that he at least informed Kinzo so it was within his knowledge, that is something that I would definitely posit.
Well, do you think Genji would think that's worth telling Kinzo about, especially with everything going on right now?
Yeah, that someone's monitoring Kinzo's position, or the people who come in and out of his room?
It's just a receipt in the door. He doesn't... do you think Genji would assume that's what's going on?
I feel like Kinzo would want to know if anyone's fucking with the door, doesn't matter why.
That's fair enough. Kinzo does seem to really like his fucking weird auto lock super study that he's got going on. That's fair. A big argument breaks out over this.
Gun!
Ava accuses Natsui of pushing Kinzo out of his window, locking the window, and then leaving.
That would be, if she actually accomplished that would be so cool. That would be like the most interesting thing that's happened. So obviously it's not
No
true.
jury in the world would blame her.
Totally. Natsui whips out her gun and is like, what the fuck did you just say? You know, she's defend all the honor of the Ishiramiya family. You know how Natsui is. Battler says, well, what if Kinzo was just hiding under his bed?
It's a good question.
To be fair,
It's a ridiculous...
I was gonna say, to be fair, most of the time, or I can assume, because like I think when we are with Genji, he announces himself before he comes into the room, correct? So
I think so, usually.
do we know if I remember correctly, I think Eva and Natsuhi announced themselves before trying to get into the door.
I think they did, yeah.
And he probably heard them opening the door, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to see Eva, so I'm gonna go hide."
Oh, fuck that girl.
I hate her.
I mean, there is a sort of sense around Kinzo that, like, nothing's really out of the question for him. Like, this is the guy who, you know, supposedly, like, restored the Yoshiramiya family with 10 tons of gold he got from a witch. Like, there are lots of kind of tall tales about this guy. So there's definitely a sense of, well, maybe he did do that. He's fucking weird.
He is fucking weird.
Eva and Hideyoshi eventually leave the room because of this, because they don't really trust anyone in there. George stays. Eva kind of begs him to come with her, but Hideyoshi's like, no, if that's part of his man's code, you gotta let him be.
The man code.
He's an adult man. It's just, Hideyoshi is just like that.
And then they go and fuck.
They go off to a guest room and, you know, set the chain and all that.
Before they're doing it.
They probably do it.
It's implied that
It's
they do.
vital that we talk about
My
that.
jaw drops that she watched every one of her siblings and 3 other people die. And she's like, yeah, all right. Yeah, let's go ruin my
That really
night.
got me going. No, those two are probably like, our plan's working.
Well, we do get this scene with them in the next chapter where Eva is, like, totally different. Like, you want to talk about alternate personalities. Eva is basically a completely different woman than she is, like, out and about with the family and stuff. She's, like, really insecure and not sure of what she's done. You know, she's
tenderness.
Really tender with Hideyoshi. Yeah. It comes out here that when Natsuhi had failed to conceive a child with Kraus for 6 years, Eva basically conspired with Hideyoshi to get him added onto the family register. He takes the name Ushiramiya, and then they have this kid as fast as they can and raise George basically with the goal of him becoming the next head. This is also where it comes out that Ava's a little relieved that George's surprise engagement to Shannon is cut short.
It's such a wild thing when she's like, I'm glad that girl's dead.
Rich people, I'm telling you, when like this much money is on the line and you have been like living in this circumstance that Ava has been living in literally her whole life with the Ishiramiya family, like being the second child, being, you know, a woman, and I think we can assume like a woman who's pretty good at the things she does underneath one older brother who is constantly rubbing the headship in your face. And like basically the impression we get of Kraus, I think, is someone who kind of just relaxed into his place as the next head. That's not to say that what Ava did was like cool or good at all, but just to like, I think it was Anna said, like it's a moment where Ava gets humanized, and you get to see this other side of her, and it's really interesting. The Hideyoshi asks if she wants to go to the Maldives. Is that how you say that?
The Maldives.
Maldives?
I'm pretty sure
Hideyoshi asks if they want to go on a vacation after all this. And Ava's like, oh, maybe in a few months. And Hideyoshi's like, no, right now. And it is like death flag central. Like you can see it coming from a mile away the second that Ava is like so soft and tender with Hideyoshi. Like, oh, these two are about to fucking eat it. And then they do.
Well, first they fuck and then they eat it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they bite
Whoa,
it. You know what I mean?
whoa.
Who's to say that Hideyoshi was like, wait, let me get cleaned up first, and then they die? So who knows?
Yeah, maybe that's what
We'll
I'm
have
saying.
to check
Maybe
his corpse for an erection.
You want to talk about rigor mortis?
We have to find
God.
the post, the little dribbles.
We have to stop talking about this right now.
Why? Are you afraid of the truth?
I am. I'm so afraid of the truth. You can't even fucking imagine.
I just hope it's not a golden truth.
Yeah,
this
shut
is
up.
a golden truth. Cut this part
The
out.
golden truth
I
is
have
that
to
they
make
had
it
was
sex.
getting that
Great.
sloppy.
Stop!
Grace makes a piss joke. Everyone leaves.
Yes, I was
Okay.
about to.
Look here, motherfuckers. Genji fucking tries to open their door, but no one responds. Kanon finds an envelope from Beatrice underneath the door. Genji tries to unlock the door, but the chain is set, so he can't open it. Kanon goes and gets a big chain cutter and cuts open the door, and they find... first, Genji, after trying to open the door, goes to get Natsui. Kanon goes to get the bolt cutters. By the time Kanon returns, another magic circle has been drawn on the door, like this, an intricate Hebrew writing all around it, has been drawn on the door in the span of, let's say, about 5 or 10 minutes.
Is that possible? See, this is the point where I feel like, in earnest, reality starts to crumble. Because how possible are the things that we're witnessing at this point?
Incredibly possible.
Okay, yeah, okay.
How so? Let's hear it.
Let me ask you all a fucking question about that door and the chain. When they go to check on them, who is it that opens the door?
Genji opens the door,
Genji
and
opens the door.
the chain is still set.
And the chain is still set, supposedly.
Yeah, okay.
Kanon is there. He sees the chain set
Kanon
also.
is also there and is also in cahoots.
I
Okay,
see,
but
right. This
There's a part with Canon later that I feel like really disproves his complicity in this.
Also,
I don't think it...
Well, let's go ahead and get through this real quick because Kanon does bite it not too long after. They open the door to find Ava face up, still fully dressed. So they weren't fucking perverts.
they
over
didn't
the
get
clothes?
the chance to.
That's way more intimate.
Ava is lying face up on her bed with a huge steak. Or they call it an ice pick, but we do find out later it is a stake sticking out of her forehead. And Hideyoshi is in the bathroom with the door closed and the shower still on, also with a big stake in his forehead.
No. His
What?
isn't in his forehead, is it?
Isn't it? I'm pretty sure.
All right, 1 second. I'm pulling up the game.
Sorry.
I'm opening up... No, I just opened Higurashi. That's not Umineko. Shit.
Let's see here. Pierce through the forehead. Hideyoshi's is in his forehead.
Oh,
The
I'm
game
sorry.
record says so. No, I know what you're thinking of, and that's coming up very shortly. Everyone's very pissed about this. How could someone kill someone inside of a locked room? All the windows were locked. The chain was set. Kanon had to cut it open himself. And then immediately after this, there's this weird smell in the hallway. So Kumasawa runs off because she thinks she left a burner on, and Kanon runs after her at Genji's behest. And then Kumasawa and Kanon both realize that the smell is actually coming from the boiler room in the basement. Kanon runs downstairs, and Kumasawa, follows with her old lady feet. Down in the boiler room, Kanon gets a hatchet off the wall and has some of my favorite lines in this entire book.
It's so fucking good.
Really, it is.
Yeah, he answers the darkness, which swirls into a collection of glittering gold butterflies. The story says this happens, and he says, the master called succeeding against astronomical odds a miracle, and the astronomical payoff magic. I'm not furniture anymore. I am the zero in your roulette. And then he rushes the darkness and promptly is stabbed through the chest with a stake. And the gold butterflies dance around him and then vanish. Cannon, for some reason, pulls this stake out of himself, which I think is a bad idea, but
Yeah.
Cannon's bleeding out. Everybody else reaches him way too late. Battler, there's a door in the boiler room, and Battler rushes out of it into an enclosed courtyard that's in the mansion. And there's nothing out there except for 2 unlocked doors, because they don't lock the doors that go to the enclosed courtyard. So the culprit has gotten away again.
See, and on top of being absolutely fucking badass, good for you, Cannon. That was the coolest thing anyone's done. That totally, I feel like, disproves the theory that Cannon would be complicit in these murders. If Kinzo is really masterminding this shit, then he's not.
Yeah.
He cannot be a puppet, because what does he die dramatically in front of everybody as part of the bit?
Go ahead.
No, that's all. Yeah, that's all.
I just want to say, from a logistical standpoint, if Kinzo is masterminding this, does it make a lot of sense to kill off like 2 of the people who are in on it?
Yes.
Like,
no,
why would
no,
he
that
do
does
that?
make sense, actually.
No, all of this makes sense. Hear me out.
I'm hearing.
1, Kinzo is fully on board Epitaph Beatrice train.
Mm-hmm.
The key, or whatever, that chose the first 6 happened to choose Shannon, and he went along with it because that's how magic works.
I see what you're saying.
Second, Cannon doing this does not prove that he was not involved. It proves that he's sick of being involved.
Why is that the random moment where he breaks when he runs down to the basement?
Because he's tired of seeing all these people die!
He's like, yeah, I've been pretty
Cannon
cool with...
has been taking Shannon's death pretty poorly.
Like, I feel like you could reasonably, as Cannon, need to spend, maybe not consciously doing this, but needing to spend some time to think about your place in all of this and realizing that it's shit. And so he's like, I am the zero because you were only planning on these 2 thingies, but guess what, dickhead? I just fucking said no to you. What do you think about that?
Why does he call it to Beatrice, then?
Because Beatrice.
And how would you explain the glittering gold butterflies that swirl around him and shoot a stake into his chest?
You know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Magic.
That's the part of the story that I've been having the most trouble with. Like, not specifically that, but the existence of the gold butterflies, and basically any scene where we're not following Battler, we see things that are almost, in no uncertain terms, magic. And I wonder what the rules of the story are. Is it only when we are following Battler that we are seeing things from the perspective of a human? Or is it just because he's not synced up to the story, he doesn't see these things? I don't believe that magic is the cause of everything that is going on. At best, it is just a tool being used by one of the 18th to do anything. But that doesn't mean that I need to dismiss magic out of hand or the existence of a 19th person. It'd be foolish to do that. It is something to constantly be thinking about is this real or is this not? And what are the rules about what we are being told? What is the narrator, and what do they have to gain by showing me this?
I have theories.
Do you have any suppositions about those rules so far?
Well, out of nowhere, I just randomly had the thought of, I think that Rudolph is the person inside the boiler, but...
Oh, like okay, yes. So inside of the boiler, they find the thing that was putting out the weird smell. It was a corpse, which Genji identifies as Kinzo because of... Right, because of the 6-toed feet that he has. Polydactyly is like a trait, a genetic trait in the Yoshiramiya family that's associated with like good luck. This was why he was chosen to revive the family all those years ago. It's because of his good toes. Great toes on Kinzo.
So,
a cat?
I wanted to argue against it not being Rudolph, because you think that like that being the case would make it to be the point of like Battler would be something like, wait, my dad had 6 toes too. Like it could, like I feel like that would have
How
been
often are you
something.
looking
Yeah,
at your
yeah.
dad's
Tell me more
toes?
about Rudolph in the furnace.
Mostly, I'm thinking about the possibility that Kinzo is actually still alive. I'm just thinking as we were going back through everything, if Kinzo is not in the boiler, then he could still be an actor because the two corpses cannot be properly identified who were supposed to be Kyrie and Rudolph. Which would still mean that there is a, quote, 19th person who is the corpse that is being used inside of that shed, which I don't like, but it might be a possibility that they had a cadaver.
Yeah, just a bonus cadaver.
I know.
Well,
I don't like
the
it.
thing about... No, please, Grace, go ahead.
I mean, they did say they had servants come in and out over the years. Who's to say a servant just had an accident and they got shipped away, but rich people shit, and they were like, no, actually, you're dead now.
We're gonna keep your corpse here.
Well, I think it's important to note that, like, Nanjo is, like, no expert of identifying corpses, but I feel like anyone in the family would be able to tell a fresh corpse from one that is, like,
That's fair.
even, like, a couple days old.
Yeah.
That's why Kinzo being in the furnace is so important, because sometimes burning can be used, or Kinzo, in quotes, Kinzo, if we say it is Kinzo. That could be used to disguise the time of death, maybe. So,
Which is a point that's been brought up. Not specifically that furnace was done to describe it, but the possibility of things being done to hide the
right.
is brought up in the story.
For sure. And I mean, if Nanjo's in on all of it, then all of the shit is bullshit anyway. So after this, basically everyone decides that fuck this. By this point, it's 8 p.m. Everyone decides fuck this. They all decide to go up and hole up in Kinzo's study. Oh, Cannon! They rush Cannon away to like the servants' room. Like a bunch of the George and Jessica and Nanjo and Kumasawa, I think, all try to save him, and he doesn't make it.
I really like Maria being like, Beatrice is going to revive soon and take us all to Golden Land. And it's like, how could she know this? And it's like, she fucking read the inscription.
Oh my
She
god, the fact
noticed
that they
what's going on.
So,
it's so fucking funny.
drives me fucking crazy.
We haven't said it yet, and the characters won't realize this for a little while longer, but yes, all the murders are happening in accordance with the epitaph. I forgot to mention Kinzo has a big stake coming out of his forehead, which is the 4th Twilight. Chest is the 5th Twilight, gouge the chest and kill. Eva and Hideyoshi were both tear apart the 2 that are close. And of course, the 6th chosen by the key in the store shed.
Yes, but this is another murder trope where it happens in Apollo Justice, where it's, well, the murder happened according to the song that was written in that one. And it feels a lot like this is being done to try to disguise when people are being murdered. Like, yes, the 2 who were close were killed, and then we found Kinzo, who was killed in his head, but obviously he was killed before them, so that doesn't add up.
No, it
If they
does
were
add
supposed
up.
to be killed if they were supposed to be killed in the correct order for the revival to happen, then it's already messed up at that point.
I mean, who's to say they just didn't keep Kinzo in the basement?
How do you know Kinzo was killed before the garage people?
No, I'm not saying Kinzo was killed before the garage people. I'm saying that he was killed before Hideyoshi and Eva.
How do you know that?
Because his body's a charred corpse, and this is all taking place over the matter of 5 minutes.
No, that's it. No, Matt brings up a good point. Genji specifically notes that the flames in the furnace are usually kept very low, which means that Kinzo would have had to been burning for a long time before the smell actually started to leak out into the mansion proper.
I mean, did they mention whether or not they turned the flames up?
No, that's what I was wondering.
They don't. I don't think it's ever said what.
It might
I
just
don't
be
think
because
so.
it's nighttime, the heat kicks on.
It could be.
I mean, it is,
Like-
October?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Tips.
Genji says the flames were usually kept low in the furnace, so the body had likely been burning a long time, but we don't actually know if it was. And if Genji's in on the whole thing, then that's all bunk. It's the thing about anything anyone tells you in this book.
I don't think Genji's word changes the way fire works, but that's just me.
It's an interesting theory.
Well, a bigger fire works faster.
Maybe it's magic fire. Magic gasoline.
I wanted to go back to what you were talking about, Matt, where Maria is like, Beatrice is going to revive everybody. Like, Maria is like, through all of these murders, is like totally on board with Beatrice. Even when she actually sees some of the corpses, she is like, Beatrice promised to take Maria to the Golden Land, reading from my notes, a wonderful place where there are no obligations, everyone's always together, and everyone's always nice to each other. That last one feels important, knowing Maria's relationship with Rosa. Jessica accuses Maria of feeding information to the culprit. If we take Maria at her word, she has been talking to Beatrice. Not just talking to Beatrice like today, but she seems to have some kind of like relationship with her, you know, or at least is very well versed in like the Beatrice lore. So the question of whether Maria is on the witch's side, quote unquote, is one that kind of comes to a head here. George asks who gave Maria the letter, like people have been doing this whole time, and Maria says, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." And George presses, and Maria just says, "Oh, you won't be satisfied unless your opponent is a human you can hit."
Tell him.
Yeah.
And so I think they start hitting her at this point.
Battler, so talk about like family violence being kind of normalized. Maybe like an extreme reading of that, but Battler does just kind of start bopping her on the head. I didn't take it to be like, certainly not a slap across the face, but
no.
I did note that Battler does start doing that. Anyways, they all go up to the study. There's only 2 keys to the study, Genji's and Kinzo's. Yeah, Genji got Kinzo's off of his corpse just then. Off the corpse that is purportedly Kinzo's. I should be specific about
It's
that.
a really elaborate setup, if it's not Kinzo.
It is. They go up there. They find that the door handle has the same kind of scorpion inlaid on it that was on the charms that Battler and Jessica got from Maria. So they all hole up in there.
Reasonable. And
Reasonable.
they're told that it's pretty much like a fucking bunker.
Basically, yeah. There's like, not only is there like a bed in there, there's like a full bathroom and like a little kitchen. So like literally
It's like a little studio apartment.
The question of why would Kinzo leave if he knows about the murders and is not the culprit, the question of why he would leave is really, you really have to wonder what could make this man leave this room.
Did Eva and Natsuhi check the bathroom?
I don't know that they checked the bathroom.
Because, like, my reading
They clearly
of it...
weren't thorough because they take Battler's theory to be something that could happen. But they all get in there, and Kinzo is not in there now. So at the very least, he's not there.
Plenty of time to
presently.
leave and jump and throw himself into a furnace.
And then we get this moment where we learn a little more about chessboard thinking. That, you know, it's a useful trick, but the quote from Kyrie is the memory of Kyrie that Battler remembers. Simply put, chessboard thinking is weak against noise and fickleness, as well as mistakes or incorrect knowledge. So basically, like, chessboard thinking works in chess because you can assume that your player is playing by the rules of chess and is playing to win. But if someone is playing by some rules you don't know about, or isn't playing to win, or has their own goal that isn't like, you know, winning at standard chess rules, then chessboard thinking breaks down.
Oh my gosh.
Or they make a mistake.
Basically, you can only examine your opponent's movements as well as you know your opponent. And Beatrice, you know, whether she is a witch or not, is basically a black box still at this point.
I do love that this story's just beating you over the head. Like, you gotta spin the chessboard around. And then just later, Battler just goes, Kyrie once told me that this chessboard theory sucks ass.
It's bad. It's not a good one, huh?
Oh, you know,
Shit.
it's like, it's one thing you can do. And maybe in this specific situation where your family is being
Murdered.
killed off by some mystery person who you know nothing about, maybe it's a little
oversimplifying the problem.
So what the chess theory basically brings it all down to is we need to know the person who is doing this better to understand what they are doing here.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Battler gets at, is that it's tough to find a place to start when you're constantly flipping the chessboard back and forth, you know? if you just keep flipping the chessboard, you won't have any solid ground to stand on.
So this next part of the game must have really engaged me, because I don't think I put a single note between here and the very end of the game when credits rolled.
It's a great part of the
Oh
game.
my god, it's my favorite part of the game.
I didn't take any notes.
It's when
You
shit
know,
gets
so.
cool.
Wait,
That's fine.
I did take a note. That's right. When I was ordering the seating chart, that was my note.
That's good.
And my other note,
remember
which
if
is
we-
Volgan is.
Yeah, that's just canon. That's just real.
All right,
Oh,
we got a few chapters left to go. Let's do this, team.
oh, totally. We can do this in an hour. We're gonna blaze through it. So, Natsui essentially like demands that Genji talk about what do you know about Beatrice. And another one of my favorite lines in this game, Natsui is like, was she his concubine? What are you saying, man?
Natsui is actually a virgin. Jessica was immaculately conceived.
Like, are you teaching my Bible studies class in the 5th grade? What are you talking about?
Was she a...
Concubine.
Leans in closer. Was she a slut?
That's basically
Is she a
so.
whore?
Like, maybe there's some untranslatable nuance that means you couldn't use. Like, concubine does have a slightly different vibe than mistress, but it is also a very good character moment for Natsui, and it's very funny.
Concubine.
Right. Jessica brings up again. She brought this up earlier when they were talking about the gold in front of the portrait yesterday. That Kinzo's wife, Kinzo's unnamed wife, did believe that he was cheating on her.
Shit.
So here's kind of the stuff we get about Beatrice here. Beatrice was real. Someone named Beatrice was real. She had been working for Kinzo since before the mansion was built, which was in 1952. Kinzo had feelings of deep love for her, and Genji, like, I don't remember if he supposes or if he just says this, that, like, Kinzo cared about Beatrice more than his late wife. And also that Beatrice died before the mansion was completed, which again was in 1952. And that Kinzo took up his obsession with black magic as a way to possibly revive her. And so, you know, there's this moment that's a little maudlin, I think, where everyone looks around the room and they're like, oh, all the tomes and the grimoires, it's all an expression of love for Beatrice. And it's like a little overwrought, but like I get what they're going for.
They were like, this poor old man, he was just heartbroken.
He just really liked his
Mhm.
concubine. Fuck.
He really liked
This
his
Scarlet woman that he was attracted to.
George asks if there were any rumors of a kid between Kinzo and Beatrice, and Genji says he hasn't heard any. George thinks that given like how obsessed he was with black magic, that it's not unreasonable to assume that there wasn't a kid, because he probably would have just loved this kid and not like gone to all these lengths to, you know, try and revive her. Jessica says there was a rumor around Kinzo and kids with the Fukuin house, which is the orphanage that Kinzo sponsors that both Kanon and Shannon and a bunch of other servants come from.
Oh no.
And Natsui like shushes her. She doesn't want this brought up, but there were rumors that Kinzo was supporting Fukuin because he was using the kids as fuel for a quote-unquote filthy hobby, which Jessica says, oh, I heard it was sacrifices for black magic. But I feel like the implication is a little darker there.
Holy
Jessica is kind of
shit.
brought to be like kind of the most naive and like trusting and innocent of the three older cousins.
Mhm.
And this is a moment where I think that shows up. Natsui shushes her again, and basically they stop talking about it. Battler finally fucking realizes that, wait a minute, the epitaphs are the murders, and everyone, there's, Kinzo has a picture of Beatrice and the epitaph in his room, and the cousins and Natsui all crowd around it.
And Maria's like, yeah, dumbasses.
Yeah, Maria's like, yeah, dipshit. And then Maria's like, hey, check out this letter. And Maria has found a letter from Beatrice on Kinzo's desk.
And then gun!
And then Natsui whips out his gun and she's like, backs against the fucking wall. So the older cousins and Natsui were all around the epitaph trying to figure things out. And the servants which is Genji and Kumasawa. Nanjo and Maria were not, which Natsui says it must have been one of you who put that letter there. Who did it? And, no one fesses up.
But it was Beatrice, right?
But it was Beatrice. Yes, it was Beatrice. Basically, the four of them, the four suspect people, paranoia sets in, and Natsuhi kind of creates an atmosphere that forces the four of them to kind of voluntarily leave. When Natsuhi is like pointing the gun at them, George is like, right now the island is outside of the reach of the law, but when the typhoon passes, the law will return. This is something that comes up over and over again in the novel when like they kind of reach an impasse where someone will say, oh, well, the police will show up tomorrow and they will definitely solve the murder.
They'll go, hey, we're bootlickers.
Which is very funny given the cops do show up at the end and fucking figure
They're just like,
out.
I don't know, man, that was weird. That's some weird shit.
I bet it was some weird woman who lived in the woods.
I knew it!
This feels somewhat intentional to me. Like, most of the family keeps rejecting the idea of this like mysterious Beatrice who is the force that is the cause of everything, and that like, this mysterious, powerful force that has the power to do anything. But they do believe that the cops will just show up and make everything right and everything will be fine.
They are rich people. The cops do protect their interests.
That's true.
Totally. It feels like a, I don't think this is Ryukishi's anti-fascist turn. I wish it was, but that feels like a particular kind of contrast that he's playing with there. The four suspect people leaving Natsuhi, Jessica, George, and Battler, all in Kinzo's study. Natsuhi says, with this, we are definitely safe, as she grips onto her rifle. And we reach the final chapter of Legend of the Golden Witch. It's 11:30 p.m. I really like this. We get these like tiny little character moments with everyone at the top. So Natsuhi is facing the door with her rifle in her hand. George is looking through a gap in the curtains towards the enclosed courtyard. Jessica is sitting next to Natsuhi, dead-eyed, and like taking her inhaler sometimes. Jessica has asthma. That came up earlier, but we never mentioned it, but Jessica has asthma. And Battler is like rummaging around in all of Kimzo's black magic tomes looking for a book on magic circles, which I think is a good little like moment of revelation for each of them. George is looking outside. Jessica is like worried and defeated. Battler is like scrambling for anything he can to kind of try and fight back.
Very
kind of
bad.
answer you can find.
Inside the letter, which we didn't read, do we want to read the letter real quick?
Yeah, I got it. The Witch's Letter 3. Are you enjoying the riddle of Kinzo-sama's epitaph? As you are all probably aware, you have very little time remaining. Please abandon any naive hopes of escaping after the storm passes. This game can only end with my victory or yours. When time runs out, I will win by default. There will be no ties. Make sure that you do not misunderstand your current situation.
We should have given you the theater degree. What am I doing with this bullshit?
I've always read stories just like that. One time in school, my teacher got mad at me because I was reading with a weird voice. And I was like, what?
God.
That's how I talk.
Having fucking fun? Yeah.
How dare you?
I'm with you on that one. Included in this letter was another magic circle, which, they can't identify with Maria out of the room, but Battler eventually finds it, and it's a magic circle that means discord, agitate internal division, and cause the enemy to bring about their own downfall.
Oh my god. Magic is real. It's such a cool moment.
We're on Discord right now!
I'm howling at the moon.
Wait a minute. Who's the sixth person in the Discord call?
It's fucking Kinzo. God.
It's just groovy.
Oh god. The cousins basically kind of come around and try to say, hey, look, the culprit is Beatrice. We don't need to suspect anyone. But Natsui holds hard to, her decision to kick someone out. Natsuhi says to Jessica, she calls her precious daughter, finally received 12 years after I married my husband. I would become the worst kind of demon to protect you.
She's
Which is
fucking pissed.
But
Another in a series of girl boss moments
But
for
then we get an
Natsui.
interesting moment, which is Jessica going, well, if I happened to be back there,
Mhm.
what would you have done? Huh?
Exactly.
And also hinting Maria is family, and we should really take care of her.
At this point, the phone rings, which is weird because the phones are supposed to be down.
Yeah, right? Okay, theory evidence number 73.
Well, hang on. Let's. I want to get through to the end of the. Let's get through the end of the main story, and then we can do theory zone.
I'm too heated.
Because we're so close. The phone rings. Natsui picks it up. There's no one. It doesn't sound like anything, but they can hear a kid singing far away from the receiver, and they're like, "Oh fuck, that's probably Maria. What's going on?" They rush down there. Battler brings a candlestick, like a long candelabra as a weapon, which is very choice. George says, well, they probably have some kind of weapon that can shoot or pound those stakes into someone, so we need to be ready. And there's this building tension. It's awesome. This whole sequence through to the end of the story is still to this day one of my favorite sequences in all of Umineko. It is so tense. The music is hitting, like you can feel you are in the end game. It says it's 11:30 at night, so it's very close to midnight. It's so good. They reach the first floor and they hear Maria singing in the parlor, but she's singing mechanically, like she was told to sing a song. They try to open the door. It's locked, obviously. George opens the door with Genji's keyring that he surrendered when he was kicked out. And they throw it open and they find Genji, Nanjo, and Kumasawa all dead on the floor. All of their faces horribly mangled, just like the corpses from the morning in the store shed. And each one of them has a stake in their stomach, knee. Well, each of them have a stake. One in their stomach, one in their knee, and one of their leg, respectively, completing the epitaph murders. Maria is standing, her face to the wall, singing a song, and the phone in the room is off the hook. Battler asks her who did this. She said, Beatrice. Was it the same person who gave you the letter? She says, Beatrice. Battler takes this as proof of a 19th person, and when she's asked, Maria says she doesn't know how anyone was killed. Maria says, after Genji locked the door to the parlor, Beatrice turned into butterflies and slipped through the crack in the door. Mm-hmm. She says Beatrice spoke to them. She said that the study is protected by a powerful force. She'd have to choose 3 sacrifices from the parlor instead. She says Beatrice spared her because she had the scorpion charm that Battler gave back to her. That happened. And said that Beatrice told her to face the wall and sing for a long time so that she wouldn't hear anything, wouldn't know anything, no matter what. Which is creepy as fuck.
Another moment where I feel like magic is real. But go on.
Battler's says this is all bullshit. Maria says, then who was it? Who killed it? Was it me? Did I kill everyone? I don't remember if she says that, but he. But they realize that Natsuhi is gone, and that Maria says she left after reading a letter, and Jessica tries to leave the parlor, but the doors are barred from the other side with Battler's candle holder that he brought with them. And then cut to in the foyer in front of the portrait of Beatrice. Natsui throws down the letter and issues a challenge to Beatrice, and golden butterflies flutter at the end of the hall. Yeah, Natsui accepts Beatrice's offer for a duel, and the butterflies form a human shape. The cousins break down the candlestick, burst into a hall, and they hear a gunshot. And they run into the foyer and find Natsuhi laying dead on the ground with a bullet hole in her forehead and her own gun barrel still smelling like smoke. Battler grabs the gun, and the clock is almost at midnight, and you get this little bit of prose. Isn't 2400 a strange time? It's both the end of the last day and the start of a new day. Mm-hmm. It can be read as 2400 or 0000. And then Maria runs off into the darkness. Battler points his gun into the darkness towards the portrait of Beatrice, and the thing Maria is running towards is the portrait's subject. Battler takes aim. I won't accept the existence of witches. The witches laugh. The clock strikes 12, and the rule that the witch would win when the time ran out had already been revealed. End.
Gunshot rings out and the sound effects. And it
It's so
smash
fucking
cuts to the
good.
credits. That's crazy.
You know, we get a little end roll here before we get to the theories. The police conducted an investigation, but couldn't figure anything out. The corpses of the cousins, even though they supposedly survived, were never found. Though, given the gruesome scene, it's unlikely anyone actually did survive, and then is what the cops decided. Many years later, a bottle washes up on shore with this story, with Legend of the Golden Witch inside of it, scribbled in tiny letters on notebook paper. And
Tiny.
Real tiny, itty bitty. And this causes the murders to like take on this mythical status. People start talking about them, and a whole bunch of interpretations of the story circulate. But according to the narrator of this like little end scroll that we get, none of them are even closer to the truth. And then we find out that the letter itself, the message in the bottle, was signed by Maria Ushiramiya, which is weird because they looked into it and they did find a piece of Maria's jaw identified via dental records. It's unlikely she survived. And the very last thing is this message that was at the end of the story, at the end of the message in the bottle. By the time you read this, I will probably already be dead. Although there may or may not be a corpse, you who have read this, please find out the truth. That is my only wish. Ushiramiya Maria. And that's Umineko.
Did she send that when they were at the beach?
Did she? Did she know that there was going to be a bunch of serial murders?
No one saw her do that?
No one saw her do that.
We didn't see her do that.
The perspective of the narrator never saw her do that.
It is worth noting, do not forget that she is the only person who has a named role in this entire story, written in carrots. It is the only time we see that in this entire story, is she is written as the messenger. She delivers Beatrice's letter, and she writes this message in a bottle. She is the messeger. I think that is very important to remember that when you think about Maria as a character. But that's just my guess.
But Jen, I just want to let you know, before I start yelling about theories, I was utterly enraptured, like, by that whole ending sequence. It was amazing.
It's so good. I like Dead Angle, which is the song that plays at the very end of before the end roll, when there's the showdown in the foyer, is fucking. It's one of my favorite songs. Like, you're getting these like super fast cuts between like the cousins in the room and Nasui out in the hallway, and it's just, oh, it's so awesome. Like, there is this drive through the end of the story that totally grips you and shakes you. Izzy, I yield the floor, please.
All right,
tell me what the fuck is going on.
Fucking get angry at everyone. Kinzo is doing everything for Beatrice.
Okay.
Beatrice is dead. Magic isn't real. But Beatrice's existence at all and her place in the story is influencing Kinzo's actions, making Beatrice an effective 19th person.
So you're saying that Beatrice is a 19th person in the sense that she is a motive for Kinzo to do all of this stuff?
She's a 19th individual who is important to the story, and because she exists, a lot of this shit's going on.
Okay. What is Kinzo's plan?
Kinzo's plan is to do that fucking magic bullshit he thinks is magic and is dumb.
Okay, what about the corpse that everyone thinks is Kinzo's?
It's Kinzo's.
He does say that he would basically that, like, Beatrice can kill him if she wants to during the prologue.
Yep. Next. Phone lines. What the fuck? Genji, I believe, was the one who told Natsuhi, hey, we can't find Gohda, and we can't make breakfast yet. That's pretty fucked, right? And it's like, we can't, and I'm sorry I didn't call up here because the phone lines are fucked. But guess what? The phone lines weren't fucked. Nobody tested it except for the servants. the servants who, might I add, are definitely Kinzo's illegitimate children.
Okay. Genji included? Goddamn.
Genji is Kinzo's estranged brother that...
What?
What?
Shut the fuck up.
What?
Genji is Kinzo's brother, and they've been hiding it. Now, hear me out. Why would they
I am here. My
why
ears are
would they
wide
be
open,
wearing,
Isabelle.
Why would they be wearing the things? Because only blood relatives are supposed to wear it. And, like, he won't even change that for people he thinks has the wing emblazoned on their hearts. But guess what? They're wearing it because they're blood to the Yoshiromya family. Because they're his illegitimate children.
Is that what
That's what's going on.
Is that what being furniture means?
Even though Genji said that, well, he didn't hear of any kind of rumor about
He
about
is
Kinzo having
lying
kids.
to cover it up.
You think Kinzo would kill his illegitimate kids to bring Beatrice back?
Yes!
I believe that. Here's my question. Once Kinzo has already died, why does Genji die at the end?
Yeah, why would Genji continue to carry this out? He doesn't care about Beatrice.
Genji doesn't care about Beatrice, but Genji cares about respecting Kinzo's wishes. Kinzo being dead does not absolve him of responsibility in his mind.
Including...
So he continues to perpetrate what's going on because that's the plan. That's what Kinzo wants. Even if it ends up with Kinzo's death, that's what Kinzo wants.
Including...
How did Kinzo die?
How did Kinzo... He was in the furnace!
No, but he
got stabbed first.
If Kinzo is the mastermind, what is the thing that is choosing culprits, and why did it choose Kinzo?
I don't know. Some fucking
Okay.
roulette wheel that he constructed, like, in a hidden room or something, and he spins it, and there's a thing called the key, and this key is the fucking roulette wheel with pictures of everybody, like it's the tips thing. Also, by the way, the tips thing has 2 empty spots, except the tips thing doesn't, because the tips thing has 2 fucking more people that are going to be put into it. And I know one of them is supposed to be Maria's father, but that's definitely going to have someone else put in there because it's driving me fucking crazy that it doesn't.
Right, so there's, we should say, there's this screen in Umineko called the tip screen, and it has, like, some information on all the characters laid out in this kind of grid fashion, and with lines in between them being like, you know, this is this person's child, and this is this person's husband, like that kind of thing. And there are 2 empty spaces in this grid. It's a 5x4 grid, but there are 2 empty spaces in it where you could theoretically put 2 more people.
I only see 1 empty space.
Well, that's because Beatrice takes up one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Beatrice does end up taking up one of them in the tea party. Okay. Does anybody else have any other theories that they want to get out before we tackle these epilogues?
Honestly, I was kind of stumped. I'm like, oh my god, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
One other thing I wanted to say is that with a screwdriver, with enough room that they were saying they could get in between the chain and the door, you could probably pop the bit of the chain off the wall and just walk in that room. And then
Okay,
screw it back
no.
on,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe.
You don't understand.
That's a lot of shit to go through
They
to kill
were
a couple people.
acting like the
Look.
train was down.
Sorry, what?
It wasn't really
Izzy's
down.
theory is that the chain wasn't really up.
They were acting like it was locking the
still
door
doesn't-
because only the servants were there. Only the illegitimate children and the estranged brother were there.
Okay, if only they were there, why would they have to like act like that? Why would they be like?
Because
oh,
it
okay.
helps them keep up their character.
Turns out that Kinzo's actually leading an improv comedy group, and they just have to yes and their way
And
through this.
let's
It's true.
say-
They
let's-
cannot break character for anything.
Let's say some people happen to be watching. There's not really a good time in the house to drop character to be like, yeah, but this is a bunch of stupid bullshit, right? Like, no.
Cannon has a thick Australian accent, actually.
He's actually Australian.
So this is like the end of the game proper, and after you get this, you unlock something called a tea party, which is reminiscent of in Higurashi. You would unlock these things called all cast review sessions, where it would be like the characters of the story kind of talking about the story they were just in, and like, oh man, I had a really gruesome death scene this time. I wonder what could be the cause of this curse and stuff like that, you know, kind of like as if they were actors talking about a play that had just ended. And this starts out very similar. They call the game they call Legend of the Golden Witch a bad end, where no one tried to solve the riddle of the gold and time ran out.
I loved how much they shit on themselves for not even trying the fucking riddle.
It's really funny.
We really didn't give it a go, did we, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that is laid out in the very first letter, and basically no time at all is devoted to solving the riddle, or even considering the riddle at all, except at the very end when they realize that the murders are kind of like it. It's all the cousins and Shannon and Cannon, and everyone goes around and says, man, it must have been a witch. George even says, I thought this was going to be a mystery game, but it's actually a fantasy game. And Maria's like, no, Beatrice exists. And everyone basically goes around and says, yep, Beatrice exists. Each crime would have been impossible for a human. And then Battler goes and ruins the whole thing.
One quick thing before that. George is like, oh, it's a shame that, Shannon, you had to die in such an undignified, painful way. And she says, very tellingly, well, it's not like it hurt. Anyway. I am 100% certain that Shannon and everyone inside of the guest house was poisoned in some way, whether it's through like a poison in the air or in the tea or whatever. I am 100% certain that that's what happened to at least a chunk of them. And I would blame Gohda for it because fuck him.
That's a good thing to default to, is to blame Gohda.
Gohda's the 19th.
It's been correct every single time that we've landed on it. He did the flower.
But Battler says, what? No, it couldn't be a witch. What witches aren't real? And everyone kind of in turn starts asking Battler, okay, well then, how did I die? Shannon's like, how did I end up like that? And Battler's like, maybe they used some tool in the store shed to grind your face off? Jessica's like, what about Kinzo's disappearance? And Battler's like, oh, we talked about that in the story. And like, this just keeps going on. Cannon's like, can you explain my death? And maybe Kumasawa got you, or maybe there was some sort of trap. Shannon's like, what kind of trap? And Battler's like, maybe Cannon, Eva, and Hideyoshi were all just pretending to be dead. That's a classic mystery trick.
Now I feel like I'm Battler in this situation.
Everyone keeps bombarding Battler with these questions, and Battler's like, I don't know, there was some trick. Eva and Hideyoshi jumped out the window after they were examined. All of this stuff, like, he really starts getting put through the ringer. And Maria eventually just flat out asks him, well, if a human did it, then how did a human do it? What kind of device? What sort of escape? Why don't you believe in Beatrice? Which is what I will say to both you, Izzy, and you, Matt. You can just say a human did it, sure, but how? How did a human do it? How did a human commit all these murders?
Izzy and I are both in agreement on at least one point, which is a human did not do it. It was at least two people who did this.
How did two people kill Genji, Kumasawa, and Nanjo inside of the locked room of the parlor with no one else but Maria?
Genji is doing everything to fulfill Kinzo's wishes. Genji killed the other two and then himself.
How did he grind his face off?
With a
Or
grinder.
how did his face come off? What?
With a fucking belt sander. I don't know.
Thermite.
You're saying he ground his own face off?
First he ground his own face off, and then he ground off the face of the other two. Easy. Next question.
You saved his face for last. That doesn't make any sense, Matt. My thing is perfectly sound logic.
Battler comes around and he performs one final spinning of the chessboard, and he says, if you want me to believe in witches, just show me a witch.
Yes!
And then Beatrice shows
This
up.
is a really cool part.
The victory I felt in my soul when she finally
The fucking
arrived.
Fortnite dance she does as she walks into the room, I'm sure.
It's so good. Beatrice fucking appears via magic, and the servants are like, oh, Beatrice-sama. And the older cousins ask for Beatrice to forgive Battler, and Battler, like, doesn't budge. Beatrice leads with, I'd love to make a man like you kiss my toes, which is a lot of heat to bring in, like, your first 5 minutes of being on screen.
Yeah, right? I was like,
An unstoppable boob man meets an immovable footwoman.
Beatrice is out for
That's
my heart.
literally
it's
it.
also good.
Beatrice says, okay, how could a human kill Eva and Hideyoshi, who were, locked in their room with the chain set, all that stuff? Battler says, well, they probably had something to shoot those weird ice picks with. Beatrice says, well, you can't see that far from outside with the chain set. And then Battler's like, well, how did you do it? And Beatrice summons the two stakes, the two ice picks, and orders them to kill them. And they fly through the crack and land their marks instantly.
The coolest shit.
Anna, where are you in this moment?
I'm just vibing right now. Finally, I'm at peace. I'm just like, I'll have more to say in a second.
Of course. Battler says, I like this line, your tricks aren't 1,000 years old. They're all from the 100-year-old history of the mystery genre. And
clown.
as he says that, Shannon's face falls apart and George and Jessica start to turn to meat, and basically, like, because Battler doesn't believe in Beatrice, like, the magic is falling apart. The miracle won't occur.
One thing worth noting, Jessica does note while dying, she's like, nah, dude, fuck her up.
Yeah.
Figure this shit out.
I love Jessica so much. She's like, hell yeah, dog. Fuck that bitch.
Yeah, I love Jessica.
She's
Solve this fucking mystery, dude. You got this.
She's so good.
You got her on the ropes.
Battler says, yeah, I'll never forgive you. And then that is the end of the tea party. I should say that the tea party was that you get a location screen at the front. It says Purgatorio is where the tea party, this whole sequence was taking place. Yeah, Battler says, I'll never forgive you, Beatrice. And Beatrice cackles and says,
kiss my toes, boy.
yeah, he says, I'll take your challenge. You'll deny me no matter what? Awesome. Let's start the next
Beatrice
game.
seeing Kinzo with his 6 toes and being like,
My
Literally.
God, this sucks.
We figured it
Oh,
out.
Jesus.
Well, okay, Beatrice wants Battler to kiss her toes. I don't know that any number of toes that someone else might have would really do anything for her. Just based on what we know about her right now, which I guess is her foot fetish.
Oh, is that confirmed? Is that a golden truth?
I hate this.
She brings it up twice. She's like, I'm definitely going to make you kiss my toes. And Battler's like, I'll make you kiss my ass instead.
And then it's like something about how like kissing a demon's ass is like the most belittling way to like get a witch power or something.
Yeah, it's something
Battler.
like that. God. But you complete this and you get credits, and then you get another secret thing called question mark. I think there's 4.
There it is.
This is referred to in the Japanese fandom as the Ura Tea Party, or Hidden Tea Party, taking a term from Mahjong. Beatrice is hosting a tea party for a short, blue-haired witch named Burncastle,
sure it is.
who looks remarkably like the protagonist of the Last When They Cry series, Higurashi, and makes a bunch of oblique references to the Last When They Cry series, Higurashi.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have time to really break down exactly what is going on with Burncastle here, but suffice to say, she looks a lot like and makes reference to experience of Higurashi, of Rika Furude. But what's important here that we can take right away is Burncastle talks about how her power is nothing against Beatrice, who can kill people over and over again as much as she likes. Burncastle describes this as Beatrice's power to kill someone endlessly. We kind of get that Beatrice is kind of hosting these games for Burncastle's benefit, or Burncastle is like viewing them. She's traveling through the fragments, which is another returning concept. She's traveling through basically kind of like the timeline multiverse, just trying to make sure she's not bored. And she says that she'll fuck off as soon as she's bored. So we get kind of these very oblique references to the nature of like Beatrice. This person, Beatrice, who is now real and here, might have happening, might have going on. Does anyone have any kind of particular thoughts about this?
Can I talk about the very end of this party? That's the only thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I should say that Beatrice like goes to prepare the next game, and then Burncastle turns apparently to the camera and tells you she's going to give you a little help. She tells you that Beatrice isn't necessarily one individual woman,
Hmm?
that she's not some human, but that she's a personification of the rules of this world. And then she basically fucks off after that.
She fucking looks
Which
at
would
the
theoretically
player.
make Burn Castle the personification of Higurashi. That's cute.
It is. There's some really interesting kind of meta stuff that, again, I don't think we really have time to get into right now, but we will definitely find time to talk about it in another episode. Izzy, what were you going to say?
She looks at the player. It's so fucking cool. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, it's awesome. So she has one talk sprite this entire time that's kind of like total ice face, like you can't read anything on her, and she's just kind of looking off into the middle distance, but then her pupils shift towards the camera, and it's totally awesome.
This is the point where I feel like even if it is technically some person orchestrating murders in the real world with real means, hiding under beds and shit on Rokenjima, that's so much less interesting to me by far than whatever the fuck is going on with this universe where, like, magic is ostensibly real, and not just in the way that, like, Kinzo is horny for it, but, like, all of these characters exist and have their own characterization and histories and relationships that exist fully outside of the perception of any of the human characters of the plot. So, like, what the fuck is really going on? This is why I really believe in magic, earnestly. Is because, like, what is all this? You know? And I have no idea what the answer to that question is, but I feel like it must be real in some meaningful way for this to even be happening.
Totally. I think part of what's happening here is, I said we weren't going to get into this, but I'll get into it just a little bit, is Ryukishi is using these characters to kind of talk to you about the game he's trying to play. Like, Burn Castle is this, basically it's if you were playing Legend of Zelda, let's say you were playing Twilight Princess. It's like if you were playing Twilight Princess and then the Link from the Wind Waker shows up and tells you, hey, here's what I did in my game. Here's how you can win yours.
It's like you're playing Twilight Princess and then the hero Shade shows up.
Okay, yes, real gamers know.
The real gamers know there is another Link in that game.
But the Burn Castle talks about how she had to, again, there are spoilers for Higurashi. It took her 100 years to figure out that she needed to learn and unravel the rules of the world. They're kind of contrasting the ways that people have played previous games, or that the last player played the last game, and how you are playing this game, or at least how Beatrice is playing this game, whoever Beatrice is, whether she is truly herself Beatrice or whether she is some kind of personification of the rules of this world.
But then how do you explain the Tea Party, not the Aura Party, but the Tea Party, where the real characters interface with Beatrice? It's not just plain casting call where the characters step outside of their roles. This is within the canon. This is the follow-up to the ending. It's the epilogue. It's still part of the same story.
Yeah, and that's what... Oh, we are... Okay, so this is it. This is the reason Umineko is so fascinating to me, that I keep coming back to it, and that there's so much to think about, because even the Tea Party, which at first, like, ostensibly presents itself as some kind of, like, post-canon thing, is also canon and is also happening within the story. And the story right here begins to talk about itself and what it is doing and how the things it is using and the way it is meant to be approached, or the way it assumes you are trying to approach it. And this tension that is set up at the very end of the first Tea Party, that is this 1,000-year-old magic, or are these tricks from the 100-year-old mystery genre? Like this, the tension of, is this mystery game, this thing but that by all accounts has all the hallmarks of a mystery game, is it even a mystery at all? That itself right here becomes the question of the game, which is just deeply fascinating to me, and we will talk about that more in future episodes. I'm so excited to talk about this, but that is the end of Legend of the Golden Witch, truly and fully. Overall, what did everybody think?
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
I thought it was entirely captivating, especially that like chapters like 7 through the end. I was just like, I read it all in one go because I couldn't stop reading. So
Oh yeah,
into
totally.
the wee hours of the evening. I'm the kind of person who like I feel like I need more like information to like really put together like what I really think is happening here.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like I might start getting an inkling of that in episode 2, but I don't even know how that starts, so we'll see.
Things will continue. We have 7 more books to go, and they're so good.
I do think magic.
Anna,
is
did you
real.
have any kind of parting words or anything?
Just the experience of reading it was incredible. For it being long and difficult to read, it's still incredible. The writing, really good for a freaking computer video game. The sounds, the sprites, the cinematic moments, like the ending that it manages to accomplish with still sprites and goofy like 7 sound effects and music. Stunning. It's super impressive and definitely got me hooked.
I totally agree. Two things. One of the other things that really draws me in about Umineko is I feel like it's genre work. It's unashamed genre work, not just mystery, but like otaku niche visual novel. And at the same time, it's not, even here in the first book, I think it's very clear that it's not content to just tell a fun mystery. Like there's something happening here. It feels like there is something trying to be said here about what a mystery is. Do mysteries even exist? You know? Also to what you said, the storytelling, the way that it uses the medium, like the sprites are so expressive, the music is awesome, the sound effects is awesome. I think it is just an expertly like constructed thing, just in terms of the storytelling, not just the story. I truly love this series, and I'm so glad we all get to sit around and talk about it for the next several months.
Me too.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, with that brings us to the end of our first or second episode of Golden Truths. Thank you all so much for listening. I get to plug all of these hot social channels we have for some reason. You can follow us on Twitter at Golden Truths Pod. You can follow us on Tumblr also, because I'm crazy. You can follow us on Tumblr at Golden Truths Pod. We have a website for some reason, goldentruths.net.
Oh my god.
I didn't know we had a website.
We have a website. I paid, I paid for that domain
I'm
name.
listening to this for the first time. I'm gonna go follow all this shit right now.
We have an email address. If someone, I have no idea who, but if someone has listened all the way through these 6 hours of podcast and wants to write in, you can send an email to goldentruthspod@gmail.com. And we're on, you should be able to, if you are listening to this through some unideal means, you should be able to search Golden Truths or Umineko in your podcast catcher of choice and should be able to find our feed and
We've
follow
got an
it.
RSS feed too.
Oh.
This is a whole
I mean, you really
production.
prepped.
Everybody
She
say
really prepped
thank
for
you, Jen.
You can follow me on Twitter at Kebs with 4 B's, KEBBBBS, or on Tumblr at Daihenshin, DAIHENSHIN.tumblr.com, if you should so wish. Where can people find you, Izzy?
Oh, I am Izzy Timestream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Izzy Timestream. I stream every Monday and Tuesday. You can find me there and talk to me. You can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is also Izzy Timestream, and my Tumblr is Izzy Timestream. That is Izzy, IZZY, and then Timestream, like we're in a fucking time travel thing.
I love that. Grace, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at _ Gwen Grace _ so GWENGRACE. I mostly post art there, but I also just am able to participate in discussions, or if you want to send me DMs, just asking questions and things, feel free.
Oh yeah, I want to say here, if for some godforsaken reason we do have a listener, and for some godforsaken reason you think about sending spoilers to anyone on this cast except me, I will find you and throttle you and turn your head into a grape and squish it.
That's a
Yeah.
that's a
Do not do
witch's
that.
I think you should
spell.
go without saying no spoilers, please. For the love of God.
And Matt, where can people find you?
Oh man, I do have a social media presence. I mostly just read blog stuff, but if you are foolish enough to message me, I will respond in way too long messages, and you can do that at Twitter at I'm Your Paper Pal, and that's your spelled correctly, so don't spell it wrong, you'll find me. You can also find me on Tumblr at Your Paper Pal.
Awesome. And you can find Anna in the Abyss, in the interdimensional
You can find
rift.
me here in the Golden Land, bitches. I'm off the grid.
Yes, we will all retire to the Golden Land now. We'll see you. I'm planning on a monthly release for these, although if these are 2 episodes, they probably came out pretty close together. But, yep, that's the podcast. I have a sign-off that I'm trying to remember right now. Yes, I've got it. Okay. Thanks for listening. I totally don't remember it. I'm cutting this part out. Oh, fuck. What was it?
Bye forever.
Please
No,
remember.
okay.
Umineko Sugar Girls.
Oh my
Say
god.
goodbye.
Until next time, sleep peacefully, my beloved witch, Beatrice.